As we just told you, it's no driving gloves. You've just got Derek and John tonight. Will, I think, is on his vacation for Memorial. We do thank you for sharing. And again, we'll just have all the details about our giveaway at the end of the episode. Derek, have you been doing anything exciting lately, or busy, or adventuresome, or...
Everything I do is exciting, John. Come on.
I've kind of heard that before.
Exactly. Like I say, I've been working on the Falcon a lot. Should be up and running here soon. Once that's done, I'm going to move on to probably digging into the Peerless a little bit, have a little fun with that. So that's kind of what's going on, the non-work side of life. The work side of life, a lot of exciting things going on, always coming up with new exhibits to put on at the museum and scheduling for the future, some exciting stuff. Started at least what I think is a pretty cool conservation project at work today. Can't really say anything about it on the podcast yet because we haven't announced it at work yet. So once we do the marketing and stuff with it at work, then I'll be able to talk about it on the podcast. But really going to be cool because it's going to be really a full preservation treatment, conservation treatment on the vehicle, and really kind of show off how we can preserve an original car in the museum collection that has a pretty cool history behind it. So I'm sure John and I will talk about that quite a bit on the show in the future.
We don't have any clue about preservation here. All restoration, street rods, hacking them up and turning them into something new with air conditioning. There's no other reason to have a car. How can you have a car without air conditioning? It's late May in Alabama. It's a little bit warm, and I have a black car with a black interior.
Roll down the window.
I don't think that helps. I have air-conditioned seats, and it doesn't
Or
help.
if you have an early enough car, you could either just fold the window down or crank the windshield. I'm talking about the windshield here. You could either fold it down or crank it open, or just open the cowl vent and get a nice cool breeze coming in at your face.
I know that's not even close to the topic that we're going to get to tonight, but do you know what I really miss? And I saw somewhere on Facebook, and they were identified incorrectly by a car guy. I miss vent windows.
Vent windows.
I love vent windows. They were great. I mean, they were even great with air conditioning. Last car I think I had with them was my 90 Isuzu Pup. And I think by the time my ex-wife purchased her 94, actually I know by the time she purchased her 94 Isuzu Pup, they had removed the vent windows. And those were just such a nice feature. You crack them open. It would just help circulate some air a little bit better than the climate.
I've got them on the 61 Ford Falcon. You crank them open a little bit, it's good. But then I always like doing the method of flipping them all the way open past center so that the airflow directs right into right into where you're sitting. So
it's just one of those things that have went by the wayside, and I really wish I remembered what site, because they're a car site. They should know what the heck these things are, and they had them named wrong and their purpose wrong, and it just kind of really frustrated me. But that's John, and everybody knows John seems to like to go on tirades and tantrums, hence the name of the podcast, No Driving Gloves, the gloves-off approach to the automotive hobby.
You know what I also liked? My 74 GTO had the kick panel vents where you could reach down and pull the knob and open up the vents in the kick panels, so you get that cool breeze coming up from the legs.
I mean, there was a time that air conditioning wasn't, really wasn't necessary in a car. I guess maybe this could be a topic we wander to as opposed to where we were going. Things that were on cars that aren't there today that we might miss, or maybe things we should add to cars. I mean, we got all this stupid technology. There's certain things, stupid, certain, whatever the difference is, things that we should add to cars. Roll down windows and all that fun stuff. I'll quickly say that, no, I haven't done a damn thing, obviously, other than surf Facebook for the last couple of weeks. Just marketing the new business, and like I said an episode or two ago, developing another one, and that's probably a mistake, but that's what's happening. Oh, God. Vent windows and Say, I even spray painted mine black, left the Oakley sticker on, peeled the Oakley off, so I had Oakley clear and the windows looked tinted. Me and my minimum wage self.
Let me guess, late 1980s, early 1990s.
I'm still minimum wage now, but yeah, when I was doing that.
Well, I wasn't talking about the minimum wage. I'm talking about the look of the painted windows with the Oakley.
Oh, yeah, that definitely was. That was back in the mini trucking days, back when they were hot.
Now, did you actually have a pair of Oakleys, or did you have the
No,
Folkleys?
I always had Oakleys.
I didn't even have sunglasses, so...
Let's say...
Poor white kid.
All I've ever worn since 89 were Oakleys. Now, there's been periods that I haven't done sunglasses, but every pair of sunglasses I've owned since 89 was a pair of Oakleys up until my latest ones, which should be kicking around here somewhere, which are Ray-Bans. Yeah, here they are. See, I know it doesn't help the podcast listeners at home yet, but there we go. My Don Johnson Ray-Bans.
Yeah, those are Don Johnson. If you all can't see him, but total Don Johnson right there. You know, we could go on all kinds of topics tonight because you bring up Don Johnson and talk about an actor who's driven some cool cars. Don Johnson has had some cool freaking cars in a lot of the shows and movies he's been in. So, man, we're just all over.
Hell, let's just go wherever it goes, because now you got me thinking about a yellow Cuda with a white interior. Yeah.
That is exactly what I was thinking of. The yellow Cuda. Oh man, honestly not a big, as I think everybody knows on this show, not a big Chrysler Dodge product fan, but a 70-71 Hemi Cuda convertible, which I know are extremely rare. One of my honestly favorite muscle cars. Love the look of them. Love everything about them. I mean, Don Johnson nailed it with that car in, I just had the name of the show and I was going to say it and it dropped.
Nash Bridges.
Nash Bridges, yes. I used to watch that show religiously. My dad and I would sit down every time it was on.
You talk about Don Johnson driving some cool cars. There he is driving the Hemi Cuda convertible when they started to become $1-2 million cars. He was driving the McBurney, quote, Ferrari Daytona on Miami Vice when they became $1-2 million cars. It's he just kind of has the knack. I mean, granted, the white Testarossa isn't quite at $1 million yet, but they're on the rise.
You know, I mean, maybe Don listens to the show, so I'm just going to throw it out. Maybe whatever he does next, if he could drive a 61 Ford Falcon, knock that value up a little bit.
Now, it's crossing my mind. Who has driven a Ford Falcon in a show? Is there anybody that has done that, or is that something that I have to go to the master of the Googles to find out?
It is interesting you would bring this up, and I have to go to master of not Google, but this just came up in a Facebook conversation I was having the other day. That somebody posted a picture of a car in a movie from the 1960s. Wanted to know what it was, couldn't figure out what it was, and I posted on there. Well, number one, that it was a 1914 Renault, but I said in my post, are you aware of the Internet Movie Cars database? And I put a link up to it. And this is if you're familiar with the IMDb, Internet Movie Database, this is a database for cars that have been in movies, and some TV shows get listed on here. It's a fantastic place to start your research. It's kind of like saying, oh, you should use Wikipedia. Because it is, user entries, things like that. You can actually put stuff in. It's a fantastic place that if you had a question like that, what is a Ford Falcon appeared in, you can actually go to the Internet Movie Cars database, which I am on right now, and scroll through the Fords and go to all of the different Falcons that have been seen in movies or TV shows. And let me just tell you, John, Falcon has 2,120 entries next year.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was actually just going to the Internet Car Movie Database as you were discussing that. We'll throw the link out on Facebook for everyone if they haven't, and if they're not familiar with it. It's just a vast resource, and So, what, in a quick glance, what do you think is the most famous movie that has your dear Ford Falcon in it? And let's keep it U.S. really movies.
Well, that's going to be tricky. There's 106 pages of it. Hang on. The 2004 version of The Bodyguard, which I believe was the Whitney Houston and
Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner movie. One also made an appearance in Renegade back in that was the TV show Renegade, 92 to 97. Oh, here we go. Probably one of the most famous kind of cult car movies that are out there. But there was a Ford Falcon in the Gumball Rally in 1976.
I kept thinking, and it wouldn't necessarily be a 62 or kind of what you're even thinking of, but there had to be one in that. Now I'm drawing the blank on the movie, 1980, Out of Oil. Oh, shoot. What movie is it? I want to say Mel Gibson. They were all vigilantes in the type cars. Why can't I think of the Road? Was it the Road Warrior? You know, Tina Turner was in a version of it. There has to be a Falcon in that.
Yeah, you're losing me on that one.
The Road Warrior, yep. 1981, Mad Max.
Oh, Mad Max? That had to be a later square-bodied Falcon.
There's a 71 Chrysler by Chrysler listed.
Well, that's just a shame.
Ford Custom Line, Sandrail, Aston 460F. There it is. 72 Ford Falcon, 74 Ford Fairlane, 73 Falcon. So there were a few, but obviously not the 62. But there everybody goes. That's how handy that little database is. Maybe Derek shouldn't have given that secret out. Made us look smarter than we are.
I'm a curator and a researcher, and I work for educational institutions. That's what I do. I share information.
I'm a consultant. I hide the information sources and charge you to get it.
And that's why you have more money than I do.
I'm not sure. You got the new pickup.
And that's why Will has more money than we do. He's not here to defend himself. So.
Will does have more money than both of us. He's got a pool.
That's true. That's true.
And buying the pool and filling the pool aren't the hard parts of owning a pool. Homeowners insurance and maintaining it. Those are the hard parts of owning a pool.
Kind of like an automobile. It's not that hard to buy one and fill it with gas and oil and water, but the maintaining it and insuring it is the expensive part.
And when you get tired of it, you just let the water go out and you leave it in the backyard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You forget about it, and eventually you got to go clean all the snakes out of it and the mud off of it, and you can use it again. A little bit of Bondo and crack repairs. There's the no driving gloves pool ownership tips for the week.
Yes, yeah, that was the home repair segment.
Yes. Well, speaking of that, another guy, Tim Allen. He's had some pretty decent cars out there. If we're still bouncing around a little bit of these TV cars. It always drove me crazy on home improvement. I always wanted to see the cars they were building in the garage. And every now and then he'd bring a car into it. I mean, his newer show with the hunting lodge, whatever it is, you get to see his cool cars in there a little bit more. His, green 54, 55 Ford pickup. I mean, I haven't seen it enough to know what it is, but we get to see his cars a little bit more in the newer show. But Tim's a nice, decent car guy. Not the Nash Bridges, Don Johnson dude for legendary cars.
True. And I mean, Tim Allen's originally from Michigan, actually still lives in Michigan. And I think most of his collection's there in Michigan. So, always gets a little props from another Michigan guy. So, hopefully if Tim's listening, he hears that too.
I think he's got a good section of his cars, or a good portion of his collection in California, because in listening to Adam Carolla, they did a charity auction, and Leno auctioned off 2 or 3 tours of his place, and then they auctioned off 2 or 3 tours of Tim Allen's collection, and then a couple of tours of Carolla's collection. All are stunning car collections. I really got to listen to the Howard Stern episode that was sometime this week that Zara was telling me about. I'm not a big Howard fan, but I guess Adam was on there discussing podcasting because he's kind of king of podcasting, and his car collections and the things he's about kind of drifted there. But yeah, and then of course I think Adam suggested they auction off a group tour, and Leno said, "No, that we've already done too many." So, but I think everybody's got their little bitty car collections out there, and it's kind of crazy to think that the guy that was on the Man Show with girls on trampolines kind of has a legendary car collection that collecting Nissans, and he's got some pretty decent cars, all the way up to that Newman 935 from the 78 or 79 Daytona 24 hour, not, excuse, let me get the right race, 24 hours of Le Mans. It's just an impressive car, and I still have a hard time wrapping around it. King of podcasting, and he's got a $4.2 or $4.3 million car in his garage, and collects Lamborghini Miuras, having 2 or 3 of those. And there's some money in Hollywood, believe me, people. And one of these days that acting will come through. We're actually trying a new software tonight that hopefully in the next month they'll introduce the video portion, and we'll be able to live stream the podcast during our recording.
That's going to get interesting.
I was going to say, let me tell Derek, hey, this new software we're trying tonight may allow us to live stream.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is the camera only gets me from about the chest up, so all I have to do is throw on a dress shirt, and then I'll look okay.
So. I'm right up here on my microphone, so you can't see me, and I'll probably have to get us microphone flags that say no driving gloves, so that it'll even block my gorgeous face and my long locks even more. But you'll be able to see, has Wilkes critiqued me before with my animated hand motion and speaking with my eyes closed, because I get passionate.
I do the same thing a lot of times. When I really get into a deep thought and, eyes are closed, I've got Italian in me, like John. Hands start flying. It's going to get dangerous.
I'm going to throw out a movie for everyone, and it's not the movie you're thinking, but it's the movie you need to go see. 1955, I believe it was, there was a movie called Fast and the Furious. And it's not our current one we're in the, at the 8th or 9th movie. This movie was actually, to me, it was interesting. I need to look up what year it actually came out. But it was filmed during the first or second or third year of the Pebble Beach Concours.
I think it would have been 54, because I think Pebble started in 50. They didn't do 51, and then they did 52, 50. They skipped a year. And that's why Old Car Festival is the oldest running antique car show in the country.
Yep. The Fast and Furious. It was the Fast and the Furious, released February 15th, 1955. A framed man, John Ireland, takes a rich woman, Dorothy Malone's Jaguar, and with her in it, enters a road race that ends in Mexico. And basically the road race is your Monterey Historics when the Historics were not historic. It's kind of cool. Lots and lots of vintage, what we consider vintage and classics. And to be honest, the things that are winning Pebble now, in definitely the sports car class, weren't even built when this movie came out, because we're getting 57 and 59 Ferraris winning those classes, and this movie's 55. It's just a neat look back at that era. Really a fun movie to watch, and a pretty decent storyline for a 1955 car flick. Definitely better than some of the...
I want to do you one better on a movie that has been remade, and in my opinion, horribly remade from the original. And that is in 1974, if I recall correctly. I'm going to double check myself real quick. Yes, 1974, the original Gone in 60 Seconds.
Yeah, that could have told you.
Fantastic car movie.
Knew exactly what you were talking about. Got all the DVDs. I have that, and I have the other one. What was the other movie that is, I want to say Haskell, but it's Haliki.
Haliki,
yeah.
Because are you talking about H.B. Halicki
Yeah, I believe that's
or Halecki? I don't remember how it's pronounced. It's either Halecki or Halecki. He did another movie, and I can't remember the name of it either.
I've got the DVD laying it. Well, it's probably still in a box. I just got it out it only cost $1 million to make that movie in 1974, and it's grossed 40. It's really not too bad.
The fantastic thing about that is, of course, the original Eleanor, the Mustang in that movie is called Eleanor as well. It's a 71 Mach 1, if I recall correctly.
That's definitely sound correct. And of course, in that 74 movie with the jump is where Halecki injured his back. And the Junk Man, that was the follow-up in 82.
The Junk Man, yep. And but the 71 Mustang that was the original Eleanor, and it may not have been a Mach 1. It was just a 71 Mustang. Yep. The car still exists in the finished movie conditions. Yeah, still, at least as last time, it was still in that condition. And there's a whole lot of fantastic information behind the cars in that movie. Halicki himself. I mean, just kind of like the original Fast and Furious. It's really a truly a car movie rather than a blockbuster to make millions of dollars in this modern day of movie making.
Well, there we go. Let's go ahead and I think Nicolas Cage is looking for a couple of bucks. We're more than 8 years beyond. I think Gone in 60 Seconds, the remake was 2000. So here we are in 2019. Let's get Nicolas Cage and remake The Junk Man now.
There we go. I mean, or he could get together with a musician and remake Two Lane Blacktop.
We thinking Billy Gibbons in that role?
Well, I mean, you got to find somebody. Yeah, that's going to be hard. Billy Gibbons would be good. They could just drive Eliminator across the country.
Well, Billy's got some pretty kick-ass cars. I think when you really get into his collection and drive Cadzilla across the country, you got to update it just a little bit.
Movie stars and musicians. Basically, what we're saying is we all went into the wrong career field to have amazing car collections.
Yes. I was trying to think. There was that attorney in Texas who ironically got killed in a car crash, who had
killed in a car accident.
Had a pretty decent collection. But yeah, I think that there is that guy. He used to. He does stand up in Vegas now. He's got a pretty decent car collection.
Wow, there's like 500 stand-up comedians in Vegas. Come on.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the ventriloquist guy? Because he's got a car collection.
I really like Jeff Dunham's car collection. I'd love to figure out how to get him on the podcast to chat a bit. He's kind of famous in some of the car circles that I play with on Facebook, the Bradley GT group, because he has 3 or 4 Bradley GTs, and he's kind of into his vintage Volkswagens. And he likes the color purple because he has a paint to sample purple Viper. And ironically, he got his 2000, I think he ended up with a 2018 or 19. I guess it's 19 is what the second run of Ford GTs were. Paint to sample to match his Viper. So ironically, he got his Ford GT to match his Chrysler Viper. I just found that one interesting.
Oh, Lord.
But hey, he plays with puppets. I was kind of alluding to the.
I was gonna take that somewhere, but it's a family friendly show, so.
I thought you were going to take it to the comedian everybody knows, Mr. Jay Leno and his fascinating toy collection, but I think he gets talked to death. So let's just gloss over Jay for once. Maybe we make him mad. He's not going to come on.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not going to come on
the
podcast if we're nice to him. But what?
Exactly. I mean, he's,
I was
avoid it, and he'll want to be.
I was listening to a podcast. Oh, it was the. This is going to sound bad. I actually was on this podcast in about the 6th or 8th episode, and I can't remember it. It's Rob Conrad's Rob Conrad Collecting Cars. In one of the previous episodes, actually, another guy in Birmingham, Rob's a radio DJ in Birmingham, is doing a podcast now, and he was interviewing this other local collector, and they were talking about when Jay did an appearance here and how they sent a Ferrari to pick up Jay Leno, and Jay doesn't exactly have a hankering for Ferraris, I guess we'll say. We'll get it a little bit southern there. I think he told, because I happen to know the guy who picked him up, I think Jay was saying, it was one of the first times Jay had ever been in a Ferrari, and it was the first time he ever had rode in, or that model of a Ferrari. And just one of those, I don't know, tie-back things. But dramatic pause while we move on to our next. And I keep sitting here thinking, Derek started off with this Don Johnson and going down the Don Johnson trail, and I'm at a loss to really figure out the next guy. Don hit it big with 2.5 cars and 2 TV series. For some reason, Matt Houston pops into mind. It used to be a show. I can't remember if it was called Matt Houston or Houston, and he was some sort of private investigator with his own helicopter and drove an Excalibur. But me and my fetish for neoclassics.
You're probably missing the greatest. Okay, Don Johnson, epic with Miami Vice and Nash Bridges, but you're probably missing the most well-known, most famed private investigator to drive a car that became cultural icon.
I know where you're going, and I don't want to say it because I might disagree with you. But the show was Revolution.
Where am I going? Where am I going? Bring it on.
I'm going to let you go because if you're not talking about the show I am, I've got a whole thing to expound upon. And if it is the show you're talking about, I'm going to let you go and see if you hit on the key points that I want to talk about.
Well, I'm talking about the only legend out there, the man with the mustache, Tom Selleck, Magnum PI.
Yep, that's the show I was thinking you were discussing.
I mean, how much more iconic can you get than Magnum PI, Tom Selleck, the Ferrari? And I mean, the thing about that show was, not just the fact that, I mean, Tom Selleck was already somewhat well known. That show kind of made him legendary in the acting world. I think part of the what's the word I'm looking for here? Comedic lightheartedness of that show was putting Tom Selleck in a Ferrari and him looking over the windshield practically to be able to drive.
You say something about that, and I might go ahead and say you could say the Hoff was probably just about as influential on a car as Tom was. And, we're talking Michael Knight and Kit. But the bit of trivia I love about Magnum PI is he wasn't supposed to have ever even had a Ferrari 308. He was, for those listeners that don't know, and I don't know if Derek doesn't know, he was supposed to have a Porsche 928. The iconic car from, I'm drawing a blank, Risky Business and Tom Cruise. They wanted to cut the roof off and do one of the kind of ASC convertible hacks to the 928 so that they could have better camera angles of Tom Selleck, and Porsche said, no, you cannot do that. And that's why they chose the Ferrari, is because it was exotic and an open-topped car at that point, and they could do some of those shots with Tom Selleck. But yes, his head sticking up above the windshield. And I try to watch the new Magnum, and I don't think the 488 is nearly the potential iconic car that the 308 was. And maybe it's me, and maybe there's kids out there watching, but Oh.
Yeah, it's a generational thing. I mean, those kids are going to grow up with that show, and that's going to be an iconic car to them. I mean, now that we're on this topic, I mean, we're all over the place tonight, but you bring up the Hoff, Knight Rider, and Kit. There's so many. You start thinking about it. There's a lot of shows out there that I think the car might not have always played, or the vehicle, I'm going to say, may not have always played a very central role, but sometimes led it to becoming an iconic vehicle, kind of subconsciously. And the one I'm thinking about, and oddly, we started this show off early on with a Chrysler product that I actually like the looks of, and would own one if I ever become wealthy from podcasting and acting when we get the video going. But Chuck Norris, Walker, Texas Ranger, and the Dodge Ram. That show, I love that body style of Dodge Ram, and it's probably because of that show. Because again, that's one of those shows that my dad and I sat down and watched. On whatever night it was on. It was just cool to see him, driving that Dodge Ram around Texas, doing those, somewhat, when there were driving scenes with the high speed driving in the truck and all that, which I'm sure somebody else might have been doing. I don't know if Chuck Norris is a high speed driving, stunt guy, but that truck, at least in my mind, became a truck that I really liked. And it was part of that was probably because of that show.
I'll be honest, I have never watched 1 minute of Chuck, Walker, Texas Ranger. I'm going to throw out that because of my family, my dad had an 80 Dodge in that kind of body style, and late in high school, I almost bought an 86 or 87 Dodge.
That's the body style before the one he drove. He drove the one that was introduced in 94 and a half with the dropped front fenders.
Well, then I lie. I don't know the truck. I know the one you're talking about in 94. I've owned one. My dad's owned, actually, I've owned two. My dad's owned one or two. Two, I think. I think he still has one. I think he still has his 94 3500 box truck. Now I know what you're talking about. But another one that I can throw out there that I don't think the truck was ever designed to be part of the show, but you will never think of Lee Majors and the Fall Guy without his two-tone four-wheel drive C10. You've got, and you're right. I mean, one of the things also on Magnum PI is it's not the first, but it's one of the first product-type placements for an automobile in TV. It started to get automobile product placements. With the movie, drawing a blank on it for the second time. Risky Business is another one of those. And then we get into Knight Rider. There's a story that they wanted the Pontiac Trans Am and approached General Motors, and actually the president of Pontiac said, no, we're not going to do this, after reading the script and thought it was a pretty stupid thing. But one of the sales directors in Pontiac thought it was a great idea and managed to smuggle a couple of cars to NBC. The show launched, and then all of a sudden they needed more cars, and the cars were selling so well because of Knight Rider. There were no Pontiac Trans Ams available for the show, and legend has it, whether or not it's true or not, a train crashed carrying a load of Firebirds, and somehow NBC heard about it, and their people got on the phone with their salespeople, and a whole train car of Pontiac Trans Ams and Firebirds, actually, it was a mix, came up missing, and those were all the cars they used for every season of the show. There were some that were damaged and that, so they were only shot from certain angles. But I can't remember if it's the hero car or the jump car, or one of the cars actually survived the entire series and is still around. They had a very limited number of cars they could use, and even with all the crashes and things they did, unlike Dukes of Hazzard, which totaled 8 Chargers a week or something, Knight Rider made it through with very few cars.
And that's an interesting thing to bring up from the collecting world standpoint. If you're into that collecting mode and that level of collecting, I guess you should say, there, as we're covering, there's a lot of these vehicles that have been out there in TV shows and movies and all these things. And a lot of times these cars come up for a sale as, oh, this is the car from the movie or this is the car from the TV show. Well, number one, definitely do your research because as John just discussed, and you can list a number of shows that did this. They had multiple vehicles, so they might say it's the vehicle, but there could be three others, the vehicles from the show, because there were so many of them for some of these stunts and things they were doing that you kind of have to be careful. And there's a lot of them that have been recreated or replicas created, and sometimes fake paperwork to make it look like they were the car. So, just something to keep in mind if you're ever thinking about, buying and collecting a car that has been, a movie car or a TV show car, which makes me think after this episode, I'm going to find out what happened to the truck from Walker, Texas Ranger. I might need that.
And you're exactly right. And we're going to jump back to my kit car fetish. I don't know how many of you remember, it was only on for a few seasons, Hardcastle and McCormick and the Cody Coyote in that show. Various versions of that McLaren pop up for sale all the time, and people make comparisons to it, and then there's always a discussion about the Cody Coyote, and somebody posts a picture of one, and they can sit there and tell you, oh, that was such and such a season, and that we used this chassis, and that was the jump car, or this because the guy that played Hardcastle got tired of jumping into the car by season 2 or season 3. They made the doors open so it was easier for him to get in and out. And all the interior shots are of it, the executive producers, Ferrari at the time, and not the car itself is a very stripped out car. And it's just weird how much knowledge there is. And we're just talking one show, one little car. And I think if you get into Dukes of Hazzard, they'll tell you. And there was a Charger I know used the first General Lee appeared in like the 3rd or 4th episode, and it was painted all black. And I think they did something with it. And these cars reappeared and were mended, and be sure to have the car checked out if you're really buying a TV car. I'm going to throw one out. If you want to see a lot of TV cars, and it's a cool place, I kind of cringe at the term automotive museum because there are some questionable automotive museums, but the Volo Auto Museum just outside of Chicago is a really cool museum. They have a lot of TV cars there, and they're available for sale, and you can pick them up. And it's kind of, it's really a antique mall, museum, things like that, but it's a cool place to stop and go and kind of hang on and do things like that. I'm just throwing the Volo Auto Museum out there for everybody.
The other thing I wanted to bring up, and John, you mentioned Volo, and then there's also, although it's kind of tourist trappy, there is a museum.
And Volo's not tourist trappy?
Well, okay, they're a little, but I'm thinking of the one in Gatlinburg. There's some movie cars there. I don't remember the name of it. Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Can't remember the name of the place, but yeah, there's some there. I think they have one of the Ghostbuster station wagons. I don't know if it's the real one or not. I think they pride themselves on most of the cars being original movie cars and Hollywood cars. But what I was going for there was, it's also interesting when you really get into this. John was talking about, people know, it's this episode was this car because this. You also have to go back and kind of track these cars down, because you got to understand the movie companies, MGM, I don't remember names of big movie producing companies out there, Warner Brothers, whoever they are. They get these cars basically loaned to them oftentimes, or they have basically contracting companies that provide vehicles to movies. A lot of times, some of these cars will appear in multiple movies, because we need a 1957 Thunderbird to be rolling through this movie. Okay, well here's one, and yeah, it happened to be used in 3 other movies last year. But I brought up Two Lane Blacktop earlier. I'm trying to remember which year which was filmed, but I might get this backwards. So I'll just say both ways. This could be a vice versa situation. The car, it's a 55 Chevy 2-door sedan, if I recall correctly. I'm doing this from memory. I'm not Google searching, but I believe it's a 55. I know it's 55 Chevy that's in two-lane blacktop. Kind of built up as a gasser looking car in 2-lane blacktop. From all of the research I've done on the car and kind of talking to people and looking some things up, it is pretty strongly believed that is actually the same exact 55 Chevy that was in American Graffiti that raced the Milner Coupe, the black 55 Chevy. They just basically converted it over, again, vice versa, whichever way they did it, and made it look like, a gasser in one movie, made it look like, kind of a sleeper drag car in, American Graffiti. So, there's also times where you've got cars that could have been used in multiple movies and multiple configurations, and, they might be winding up being sold as whatever they last were. But if you do the research, you might find out that this car has been in 2 or 3 movies.
Definitely buyer beware on that situation.
Well, and should we even bring up the fact, I guess I'm going to, so I don't know why I'm asking that question, that some movie cars aren't really what they say they are. Most famously, everybody's pretty familiar with Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Bueller. Anybody? Bueller?
Never seen it.
You've never seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off? I hope you're being sarcastic.
No. What's this about?
So anyway, seeing it's another cult classic and everyone has seen it except for John. Now,
You're talking about Cameron's dad's car?
There is a, air quote, Ferrari in that movie. That is not a Ferrari.
I guess that's where I was supposed to come back with, you're kidding. It's not a real Ferrari?
Yeah, could you actually edit, a really shocked reaction in there? Like, what?
It's not really a Ferrari?
But it is something else to point out that, sometimes when you're watching these movies, TV shows, things like that, they're not really what, for TV, they kind of look right. And if they're going fast enough or the clip is quick enough, you don't notice it. But, they're not really a Ferrari or really whatever. Believe it or not, Hollywood fakes some things.
I'm on a Facebook group called Radwood, and we've talked about Radwood in earlier episodes, and I'm sure we'll talk about him in the future. 2 or 3 weeks ago, Zara and I are big train people. We really enjoy trains and things like that. But there was a set photo from Back to the Future 3, which, if you remember, that's back in the 1800s, and it was part of it was done on a train track, and they have this set photo, and everything's done in miniature. It's like 5th scale train, 5th scale DeLorean time machine, and it just blows your whole mind that scene wasn't full size and it was done as models, and you've got to take that into consideration or discussion. And there's another movie car. I was talking to Cody Coyote. The Back to the Future experts and the time travel experts know not only what movie, what minute mark, what DeLorean was used in, and what it has to be. And these people that build these recreation time machine DeLoreans, they don't build I'm building the Back to the Future time machine. I'm building the end of Back to the Future 1 with the whatever food processor energy source, or I'm building the 1885 or 1855 DeLorean time machine at minute mark 1733. It's just kind of kind of wild how some people obsess over cars. You'd think they'd sit around and talk about them for an hour a week.
Yeah, I mean, it might get to
100 weeks straight.
To the point where they like do some kind of weird thing over the internet that they put out, and just I don't even know what you'd call that. I don't know, internet casting. I don't know.
I think with that, because I think Derek and I can go on and on about movie cars, and it had no way to do with the topic we were going to talk about.
I gotta add my favorite. Oh God, I have too many of them. Crap. I was going to say my favorite. Okay, two of my favorite movie cars. Can I do that real quick, John?
Well, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and the Beverly Hills.
Hate it. Despise it. Hate it.
And Herbie the Love Bug?
God, don't even get me started. Can I talk about some actual, like, really good cars?
Well, the Beverly Hillbillies got it one far. Yeah, go ahead. I'll be quiet.
I think everybody knows, or at least some of our listeners know, that I've probably mentioned Nash Healy's on the show way too many times, but big fan of a Nash Healy. I'm also a huge fan, Audrey Hepburn, but the movie Sabrina, which was her kind of big breakout movie. I think it was actually the first one where she played a leading role, if I remember correctly. There is a Nash Healy in that movie. I love that movie. I love Audrey Hepburn, beautiful woman, amazing actress. And then to see a Nash Healy pick her up, I was just like, oh God, oh, I love that. And the cool thing is, you can actually still see that car. It actually happens to be in the collections of the Petersen Museum in Los Angeles. I've been able to see the car. Fortunately, I know some folks at the Petersen. I've been able to get up close to the car. They didn't let me sit in it though. I was hoping to get that, but I didn't get that. So one of my all-time favorite cars, and the other one is probably a more obscure movie car, but I want everybody listening to look the movie up. I'm a fan of old movies. I love sitting around watching old black and white movies, silent films as well as talkies and all of that. I'm an odd guy. But there was a movie called Topper. And John, I don't know if you've ever heard of Topper.
Yes, I have. That one I honestly have never seen. Okay.
It's a Cary Grant movie. I'm a huge Cary Grant fan. Another mind-blowing actor, of course, famous for North by Northwest, one of his most famous films. But Topper has a really cool customized. Was it a Buick? Well, now I don't remember what it was customized on. An absolutely beautiful, beautiful automobile. Unfortunately, after the movie Topper, of course, as I've said, the cars have other lives at the time, and it was actually converted into. You can still kind of see the Topper car in it, but Gilmore Oil actually converted the car into a kind of a product car for Gilmore Oil, and it still exists in that configuration today. At least last I checked. So those are really two of my favorite movie cars of all time, which is of course the Nash Healy, and the car from Topper. If I could have that car as it appeared in Topper, I'd probably sell every other car I own.
You guys make me envious almost every week because you can narrow it down to what is your favorite movie car, or what is your favorite and what car would you buy? And I never can do that. I buy cars every year, and that's because of that indecisiveness, and I can't make up my dang mind. Because as you're talking, I go, okay, do I copy him and caption what movie car I want? And I don't know. The PPG prototype from the Wraith, the Lamborghini from Cannonball Run, preferably with the drivers. I can't do it. I'm sorry.
Well, that's just because, you're not a true car guy, John. No. So I had to cheat because I had to remind myself what it was. And it's a 36, the Topper car is a 36 Buick Roadmaster chassis, but it's coach built by Bowman and Schwartz. So you can imagine the beauty of that car.
I can see where you're going there.
Early coach built cars, I wouldn't like those.
No, not a chance. As far from your wheelhouse as well, we'll leave it at that. As we started in the last episode, we're doing kind of a listener appreciation. Let's get a few more listeners. Let's get a little bit more social media activity. If you listeners out there, you share out your favorite episode of No Driving Gloves on your social media and tag us. And every week when we record, we're going to choose a winner and send out a $30 gift card for every weekly winner up until episode 100. And then episode 100, we're going to choose and somebody's going to win an additional $100 gift card, all for Amazon.com. We're just throwing this out there. Share out your episodes. We'll get the name, we'll start releasing some winners' names. Every time you share an episode on your social media and hashtag us, it's an entry. It's not one entry a week. It's share out all 100 of our shows to your friends. That's fine. Or all 90 of our shows to your friends. And just tag us, and we'll start seeing who wins. We've decided to kind of keep all the winners secret to the very end, and we'll do that in episode 100. We'll announce the various $30 gift card winners over the weeks and the single $100 winner. But with that, we're out of here. Thanks a lot.
See you guys later.